I'm going to demonstrate how to use COLMAR1d. COLMAR was created by the Bouchard Lab at the Ohio State University. It stands for Complex Mixture Analysis by NMR. COLMAR1d can be used for querying and quantifying one-dimensional spectra. You can use your own database or a database obtained by COLMAR1d. You can access the software via the link below. To begin, you can input your name and institution in this box. Now you need to upload your parameter file. The easiest way to do this is to open your files and find the one that you're looking for. This is my one-dimensional proton NMR. I can click and drag it here, and I can upload the file for processing. This may take a couple of moments, but when it's ready, you'll see the graph appear below. Now that the software is loaded, you can see that my experimental spectrum has appeared. I'm going to adjust my zoom slightly, and I'm going to proceed to step 2. Step 2 is the phase correction step. COLMAR automatically does this for you. If we return to my graph, you can see that it's already adjusted, and so I don't need to do this step. But you do have the option to do it manually if it's unsatisfactory. For step 3, this is your baseline correction. As you saw with my graph earlier, I don't need to do this step either, because COLMAR does this as well. Step 4 is your peak baking step. I'm going to use the default settings here and run the spectrum deconvolution. When this is finished, you will see red lines outline where the spectrum leaves my peaks to be. This may take a couple of moments. Now that it is finished, you can see the aforementioned red peaks here. Now we need to calibrate our spectrum. This right here is my DSS peak. If I zoom in, I'm going to say it's sitting at about 0.0704. I'm going to scroll up to step 5. And I'm going to input that value. So when I return to my graph, my DSS peak is sitting at about 0. Now we can move on to the next part. We have these samples predefined if in case you're working with them. I'm using mouse center. I'm going to go ahead and load that. You can see all of these values appear here. These are the compounds that the software will search for. Now, if you're not using one of these subsets, you need to make your own database. Fortunately, this is quite easy. If you scroll up to the top, you can click right here to visit the COLMAR1d database. This will let you add compounds to search for in your sample. For this demonstration, I'm going to look for glucose. I'm going to copy and paste this ID. And put it into this box right here. I'm also going to use the second value of glucose, which is the alpha diastereomer. I'm going to copy and paste it into the same box. Now that I have all the compounds that I want to run, I'm going to run the database query. This may take a couple of minutes. Now that step 5 is completed, I can scroll down to the bottom, and these are all the compounds that I think are in my sample. So now I can move on to step 6. I'm going to use the default values here and submit for global fit based on the query results. Now that step 6 is finished, you can see that my graph is overlaid in pink. This is the reconstructed spectrum. Now I need to double check all my compounds. If I scroll down here, I can select any compound I want. For acetic acid, you can see that this peak right here on my graph is highlighted. Unfortunately, it is kind of difficult to see with all the pink and red. I'm going to scroll down here, I'm going to disable the red and disable the pink. So now when I return to my graph, I can zoom in, and so what it looks like is that my reconstructed acetic acid peak lines up really nicely with my experimental peak. This indicates that acetic acid is likely in my sample. You should do this for all of your compounds. Let's look at one of my glucose. So these different colors are associated to the different peaks of glucose. If I zoom in, it looks like they correspond nicely with my experimental peaks. Now there's one more detail I'd like to show. If I scroll to my graph, I can select one of these peaks. Maybe I'm really interested in this one right here. I can click on it and it becomes highlighted. So when I scroll down, I can see that this peak belongs to lactic acid. I will note that this will only work for compounds that we're querying. So only compounds that appear down here have peaks that you can select. Now, speaking of this table, this right here is your list of compounds, and this right here is your concentration of each compound. This is how you quantify your data. If you want to save and return to your work, you can scroll down to the bottom and copy this job ID. When you open a new tab of COLMAR1d, at the very top, you can insert that ID into this previous ID session and load your previous results.